Welcome to the No BS Short-Term Rental Podcast, an unfiltered look into the global vacation and short-term rental industry.
I'm Mateo Bradford.
And I'm John Stokinger.
And this is our podcast. We bring the right people to the table at the right time, giving you an inside view and take on the short-term rental industry like no other podcast can.
Morning, Mateo. How are you?
I am fantastic. How are you?
Good. I feel refreshed. It was a needed weekend. Just normal length weekend, but I feel refreshed. Not every weekend I come back feeling refreshed, but I do. So I'm excited.
That was not my weekend, but that's great to hear. I'm glad that you look refreshed.
That's good. Season 3, this is episode 14, season 3, episode 14. Super excited. We have an amazing guest that I'm super excited to dive into her story and what she's bringing and what the company is bringing to the guest X. And we talk a lot about UI and UX and guest experience a lot on the show. And the importance of it. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce Madison Rifkin, CEO and founder of Mount. Thanks so much for joining us, Maddie.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Super cool.
Absolutely. So this is, relatively, I'd say I didn't really hear about Mount until last year. And I think it was obviously relatively new, obviously, and we'll talk about that. And I met you in person in Chicago. You had come over and you're chatting with us at the Hopper booth, and we were chatting a little bit. But I mean, tell us about how, we're going to talk about Mount, but how do you get into this space? And I'm looking through some of your old LinkedIn. I'm looking at some of your stuff here and some of your social posts. You have a really cool story, and I don't know if everyone knows about your story, so let's chat about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think great place to start. You are correct. Mount is kind of stuffy. We did not start in the short-term rental space. The original name for the company was actually Mount Locks because we were a bike lock company. That's how we started, and really that takes me back all the way to when I was 12 years old. That's where the whole bike lock came from. I grew up in Denver, Colorado, and so that's just kind of how everything started. I got a patent for it when I was 15, and then that led me on this crazy entrepreneurship journey. And I went to college at Northeastern University, was told not to go there because everyone that does go there becomes CEOs. And I was like, perfect. That's what I want to do.
Right.
So everything aligns. Basically, during my time at Northeastern, I started Mount Locks officially and took the patent the idea I had when I was 12. And a few other students, and we basically set up a supply chain in China. We're producing bike locks. And then right around probably my sophomore year, scooters started popping up in Santa Monica, like Bird and Lime. And people were like, what is this? Like, what is a bird? I can just go hop on a scooter. And I was like, that's fascinating. And it was nowhere on the East Coast. I literally had to fly to California to see what they were talking about. And what I did was I flew with our lock, and I was like, I feel like the scooters are going to need locks. If they're leaving them on the streets, it just makes sense. Yeah, there's no scooter lock ever on the market. And so that took me down like a year and a half long journey where we were working with the scooter companies, consulting on locking infrastructure, working with the governments, and just all the chaos that came with scooters, which was launching hundreds of cities, hundreds of thousands of scooters, and basically watching a startup from 5 people become a unicorn in like less than a year or just over. So it's fascinating. And that's the background of myself and Mount. How we ended up in the short-term rental industry is kind of serendipitous.
Well, let's pause for a second before we get into your serendipitous vacation rental story. Like 12 years old, 12 years old, you come up with a patent. Let's call it what it is. You're not a normal child at 12 coming up with and I'm using air quotes like normal because like there's so many that's amazing. I want all children to be have an entrepreneurial spirit. So that's not a bad thing, but it's not when you think of most 12-year-olds, I have a 12-year-old daughter and she's an amazing artist and she does this kind of things and she's really creative, but she's not creating patents, so, I mean, what the hell? I love it. Let's pause on that and let's talk about that a little bit more. What was your family life? Like, obviously it was nurturing. My assumption it was nurturing. It was fulfilling. It was allowing you to go down these paths. But like, how does this happen?
Yeah, I honestly attribute it to a very unique combination of things. So first of all, I'm a triplet, and I'm the oldest triplet. There's 3 daughters. So
Bragging rights, right?
I like to say I grew up on like a mini team. So I was essentially born a leader because there were 3 of us, and they were looking to me as what to do. So that was also super helpful in just starting a company. I was ready for it. Also, I think within my family, I had gone to a elementary middle school that had these innovation programs. So it was called the Gates Innovation Program. They basically were like, go innovate to your heart's desire. The teachers will help you build it if you need a power tool or such, because I think I was like 10 or 12 years old. And then at the end of it, they did a Shark Tank style competition. And so they basically just threw you in. I think I presented when I was 12 in front of the 100 people. The lock idea, did a whole business pitch, which is probably why I'm pretty good at pitching now, because I started so young. And then I think the other just really random thing that not a lot of people know is my family's background is in entrepreneurship. My both grandpas started businesses, some very successful. And so I just grew up hearing these stories about 1950s. My grandpa started a company, and how he was able to do it was because he had a Reuben sandwich. He was sitting in an office in New York and brought it to the guy who ran the company. And that's how things started off.
A Reuben.
A Reuben. That's how it started.
So little side note, I'm a Reuben connoisseur.
Yeah.
And I truly, if I see a Reuben on a menu that I haven't tasted, like I have to get it. And I have a very specific, like, amount of, 1,000. I know exactly what I want to do, but okay, sorry, I digress. I love me a Reuben.
Honestly, so did he, and it's what started it all. So here for it.
Mateo, you learn something new every day.
Shit, you learn them on Tuesday mornings. I can't. I'm gonna take that somewhere at a different place and time. We'll get on that.
I love me a Reuben.
So, Madison, clearly grown up in like a hustling environment, right? It's in your DNA. So first question is, out of the triplets, did you get all the entrepreneurial genes? Second question on top of that is, how did that affect like how you grew up? Because I know like my friends that were like hustlers and doing all kind of businesses growing up, like they were just different. They moved differently, like they thought differently, like, it wasn't just, it was who they were and the things that they did. And it was natural because it was, some people can learn it. Some people it's just in them. How was that journey, starting so young, right? Like, talk to us a little bit about that.
I never looked at it being different just because it was everything I knew and I didn't know any different. And I guess I was semi-different. When you look at the triplets together, like me and my 2 sisters, they were very studious. I was not. They would be on honor roll. I was never close to being on honor roll. I was focused on building, and they were like, let's get good grades. And I was like, cool. So I guess in that sense, a little different. But I had some other just crazy experiences happen to me too while in high school and such like that. And I think all of these, unique experiences combined create a hell of an entrepreneur. And that's pretty much what the investors should be looking for, is like those crazy people. I mean, you look at it, you got Bill Gates, you got Mark Zuckerberg. I'm going to throw in Elizabeth Holmes, even though she did crazy shit. But all these people grew up in these, entrepreneurial environments, and you couldn't have recreated it if you had wanted. So
are you on this podcast, can you allude, you said you had some crazy stuff other experiences happen in high school. Can you allude to any of these?
Yes, I can. So the first one was, so in middle school, me and my sisters were in a band called Triple Threat, and I was the drummer. And so
Triple Threat.
that led
I
me
love
to
this.
that led me to then playing the drums in high school, like in a band. We were an R&B band. We played covers of like Michael Jackson and stuff like that. First band experience was our band director for that band. He played at the Grammys. He grew up in Nashville or like somewhere in the music world. He took us on a world tour throughout Europe. So I was playing the drums in a band in front of 2,000 to 3,000 people, which is not something a normal high school student does. So that would be
and this is an R&B cover band doing things like Michael Jackson, like
yeah, Stevie Wonder, Aretha Franklin, Otis Redding. Like we threw it all the way back. Al Green. Oh yeah, it was good.
I want receipts. There's got to be a video somewhere. I want to see it. We can talk about that later, but that's
I'm going to Google the shit out of triple threat and then hope the right things pops up, because you never know when Google.
You never know.
I could be looking at some weird shit.
So that I think taught me some weird things about leadership that were super helpful, because when you're the drummer, if you mess up, everyone knows. You can really, if you sing the wrong lyrics, people are going to be like, oh, that sounded weird, but they might not notice. But if you mess up on the drums, the whole thing is going down. So a lot of pressure early age. And then the second weirdest thing, which I just can't even replicate, it was crazy. I was just turned 16 and I drove to school that day. It was kind of snowy because it was Colorado. And this kid tried to whip in to the spot next to me. He whipped into me and I was hit by a car. So had my whole right leg side of my body shattered, in the hospital for a few weeks, in a wheelchair for a few months, and had to relearn how to walk and stuff. So that was the second crazy thing.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm glad we dove into this a little bit. Holy shit.
That's it. I mean, that's a journey in and of itself. Like rehab journeys, especially physically, not even to mention at that age, at that level
what do you think? What do you think? You're talking about that. Obviously all these things shape you. Like, what does like a rehab at 16 of like just total, like, accident? Obviously the kid felt terrible, no man does that shit on purpose, but like, what did that do to like towards your drive or whatever? Like, what was that thing you think that clicked?
I think the biggest thing that clicked is I was semi-shy before that happened. And I was like, then I realized, I was like, for what? There's no point. Like you get one life, you might as well live it to the fullest. And I became a pretty positive person after that, just because, the worst had happened. I was like, it can't get much worse than being in a hospital bed for a few weeks. So after that, became a very positive person. I just became very outgoing as well. And I was like, let's just balls to the walls. Let's go. Like, I don't care what happens, but I'm going to make the most of it. And from there, I think when you go through rehab, I had to set goals for myself where it's like, all right. And they were small ones. One was like, put enough weight on your right foot so you could climb up the stairs, like that type of stuff.
Right.
And then, let go of the crutches, let go of the wheelchair, all that stuff as well. So I think goal setting, actually, I learned during that time. And I took that into this next entrepreneurship journey where I'm like, by the time I hit 25, I want to be a millionaire. By the time I hit 27 or 28, I want to be able to sell mount, exit it, have it go public, something crazy where it's like, I'm on to the next phase of my life. So stuff like that has kept me really driven as well. And I think I learned it because I was hit by a car.
Crazy. Crazy. So by the time you hit 25, you said?
Mm-hmm.
You're close. Are you? I'm guessing you're close if you're not there already.
I actually turned 25 today.
What?
Yeah.
Did you make your goal?
I did.
Congratulations. And happy birthday.
Thank you.
When everyone hears this in a week and a half, you'll be a week and a half into your 25th, trip around the sun, but, or 26, because you had been 20. Yeah. Where we're at. I digress again. So how we're back to current times, or a couple years ago, you've now, you were a lock company. You're looking and you're just coming into the vacation rental and, or, the experiences, let's talk about where Mount is today.
Yeah. So where Mount is today, we've made 8 or 9 pivots at this point. We went from the scooter industry to the Airbnb short-term rental industry, and just really discovered a massive problem within the industry. And it's really that there isn't a great way to offer your guest an elevated experience when it comes to amenity rentals and just extras at the property. It's really hard to operate like a hotel. A hotel can have electric bikes, they have a pool, they have a game room, like all this really fun stuff. You can't really do that at a short-term rental property as of now, especially if you want to upsell it, insure it. Like there's a lot of barriers. And we realized that because what we tried to do was we brought 30 scooters to the industry, put them at properties and tried to rent them out. And it was a really massive disconnect because there was no software that allowed that to be possible. Nothing that connected it to the PMS, really just a lot of things missing. So that's what we figured out and started to build. Was we built a software platform. Right now, or in the future, it can take anything you own or buy and turn it into a rentable amenity for your guests. So the best example is like a bike, a golf cart, kayaks, paddle boards, Some people take it really far. They turned a podcast studio into a rentable amenity for the nomadic travelers. They did firewood bundles, beach equipment bundles, like that type of stuff, and just really started to elevate the experience.
I love the idea. I have questions around it because like I still want to learn, and like some things like scare me from like, if I was in your shoes, I'd be nervous about like offering things like that, because if say a homeowner or a host or a property manager wants to go ahead and use Mount, and they have, this, we'll talk for just a host for, they have some bikes that they want to go ahead and make rentable. What happens as far as someone goes on that bike, they didn't wear a helmet, they get hurt. Who's liable? Like, how does this work? And I know obviously you've thought all this through, there's liability insurance and all the different things that you are covering, but how does that work to ease the minds of, say, property manager, anyone that want to go ahead and use your company and use your services?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that was kind of the biggest barrier as to why people don't really do this themselves, is the liability insurance, just that headache and, nightmare of like what happens when someone gets hurt. So we essentially took a note from what Airbnb did back in the day when it was really risky to list your own property for rent. You're like, what happens if it gets damaged? We went out and created a custom policy for our software platform, because it is pretty much an Airbnb type platform, but for everything else. So our insurance policy basically covers you as a Mount host for whatever you're listing that really carries liability. So electric bikes, for example, if you list it on our platform, you become additionally insured so that when your guest rents your bike, takes it off property, and if they happen to hurt themselves, that general liability injury is covered. What we're working towards now is more damage policies, because that's honestly a bigger one if you want to list like a $20,000 golf cart or a boat or something like that. Haven't cracked that piece yet. That's what we're attempting in the next few months. But yeah, that's where it started.
That's super smart. I mean, because again, from a consumer and or putting myself in the shoes of a property manager, those are the things that I'm nervous about thinking about this. I'm like, oh shit, I got this thing, or I'm going to go ahead and rent a kayak and someone's going to, get really hurt. And again, I don't want to be the gloom and doom guy, because that's not, but these are the type of things I'm thinking of. And then you have other people that are in our space that are only talking gloom and doom. And which is negatively affects the overall, I think, vision of what we're trying to build here as an industry. And I love the fact that you and your team have thought these things through, and you're coming up with a solution. So, I mean, with that said, I can see, and like, sky's the limit with this.
Is it though? Because like for me, I love the idea, but like, what if someone is like, hey, I got this trap shooting set up right here. And that's where my mind is going, is like, all right, guy's got a great cabin out in, I'm in Oregon right now. So let's say Oregon, and he's got like a trap shooting thing that he's putting out there. Like, are there limits like to who and what? And also in terms of like that risk mitigation, are you partnering with people, or are you guys building that into the model so where you're also building that as a part of the business, if that makes sense?
No, that does. And I mean, honestly, that is something we've had to think about, because as you can imagine, people get really creative, and it is very dependent on your property and where it is located, right, based on what you want to list. Mm-hmm. The way we manage it right now, and actually people will be able to start seeing this October 1st, we're revamping the entire website, and you can basically go online and click list an amenity, and it'll walk you through a 5-step process. Where the stopgap is we have amenity buckets, basically electric bikes, scooters. You click where your amenity falls into, what category. We also have an other category. So if you happen to be really creative, the other category is for you. Yeah. Those ones are not going to be going live right now because we're not built for those yet. But if we get enough requests in the other category, we'll start to open up category by category so that then you can list skeet shooting or whatever you just called it.
Right.
Yeah, because we want to make sure liability-wise we're covered, the host is covered if they do list it. And then we actually might be taking a note from Hopper as well, since we already took a note from Airbnb. But with the insurance,
I love this. I love where you're going, wherever you're going with it. I love it.
Awesome. With the insurance aspect, we built it into the platform. So right now, if you work with Mount, you get it. Where I want to take it is if you do happen to be renting, let's call it a $50,000 yacht, and you're renting it for 2 or 3 days, you as the guest could opt in for further damage protection. You'd be paying extra for it. But then if anything were to happen, you'd be covered, stuff like that, where Mount doesn't have to take on the cost, but we can actually upsell it as a product on our platform.
I dig it. Smart.
Fintech, jumping in with the fintech. Love it.
Yeah.
Definitely like that.
That's so I think you mentioned to me, and I don't know if you're talking about there's some mentorship. I don't know if we could talk about that on the podcast that you're receiving, and feel free to if you can. If not, we can talk about it another time. But I love that, by the way. And so if you can talk about that, let's talk about that. But then I also want to talk about your upcoming Heard It Here First thing happening in New York really soon.
Absolutely. Let's touch on both. Yeah, what John is alluding to is basically Mount's superpower, I guess I would call it mine as well, is the ability to LinkedIn stalk people until they come and work for me. So I had the ability to do that with Luca, who actually works at Hopper. I met him at a conference. He at first very much scared me because he was so serious about the business of Mount and just grilling me on questions. And then I realized that was what we needed. We needed someone who was going to be grilling us, thinking about growth in the future, and really his expertise coming from the short-term rental space, from Hopper, from the Plum Guide, from all of the places he's worked.
Hotels tonight. Yeah. So those that are unaware, Luca Parducci is the director of supply here at Hopper Homes.
And our newest advisor at Mount. So he will be joining us advising in an advising capacity to really help us take Mount to the next level and get to that Series A in 18 to 24 months. So yeah,
Awesome.
Excited to have him on the line, or I guess on the team.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. It's been super positive in my personal growth, in professional development. So I'm excited to hear that he's coming on in an advisory role with Mount. That's exciting.
Congratulations.
When I did forget to mention too, he's coming on as an investor as well. So advisory and investor.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Let's talk about, okay, so we talked to what I alluded to. Let's talk about this thing coming up here in New York, and what is this all about? Heard it here first on the No BS Short-Term Rental podcast.
Yeah, heard it here first. So if you've been paying attention on LinkedIn at all, you might have recently heard about Mount, because we're coming out of the woodworks. We're kind of being like, hey, we're here to stay. And our first event we ever threw happened a week and a half, 2 weeks ago in Portugal at the Vacation Rental Worldwide Summit. We tricked out one of our amenities. It was a big yacht, and basically invited some of the industry's best on there for a 6-hour cruise down the Douro River. We had a private chef. The whole thing was catered, and it was just a phenomenal time.
I heard about that. I did.
See, LinkedIn is working. My superpower.
On a 6 hours.
So yes, LinkedIn was working, but also that back channel buzz was working too. Because I had some pictures. Because John knows I was supposed to be there, and so I was getting some pictures and other things. I was like, oh, okay, all right, this is pretty cool. No, I love it.
Yeah, it was our first ever event. So it was super fun to throw. I think, we're starting to disrupt the conference scene. We're calling this the amenity experience sponsorship level, as opposed to just normally getting a booth and being boring. So we're pushing the boundaries there. But what we've decided to do with our next event, because we are doing one, is essentially a hello to the world of, hey, this is Mount, come experience what we have to offer. So we're tricking out one of our Airbnb properties here in the city in New York. It's a penthouse, has a massive private roof outdoors. And what we're going to do is bring in a lot of Mount amenities. We're bringing in actually other founders as well, female founders from the prop tech space, because there's a big prop tech conference going on in New York. And we're basically just going to have this kind of industry gathering, fringe event for the CRE Tech and New York Tech Week conferences happening as well. And a place to experience Mount, meet other amazing female founders, other prop tech founders, other investors, all while you're experiencing Mount as it was supposed to be an experience.
Love it.
I absolutely love that. I think that is the ingenuity there. Like, it's exactly the things, John and I talk about all the time, like keeping things fresh, keeping things new, keeping people on their toes, and doing something different. And what better way to showcase who and what you are by doing and bringing people into who and what you are live. And I see that multi-vertical reach too. I see you're going with it. Like I think it's brilliant. Hands down. Hats off. Awesome.
Thank you.
Are we going to see you at the Book Direct show?
Yes. So Mount is doing another event actually at the Book Direct. We are partnering with TouchStay, and we are doing a tricked out boat experience. So
nice. That's why I knew you were. I was
a nice little plug.
I was baiting you a little bit. And those that are listening, so when this goes live in a week and a half from us recording today, this will just be a couple weeks from the Book Direct show, or a week and a half for the Book Direct show. And there'll be a huge announcement too for something that Mateo and I and Neely and Maddie's a part of it. So there'll be a big announcement at the Book Direct show for what we're doing as well. We're super excited about it. There's so many amazing partners and people involved with this. So super excited about that. I mean, what else do we have? I mean, where's next for you? Yeah, we talked earlier about the sky's the limit, and then Mateo said, but really, is the sky's the limit? And then you had a great answer for this. But like, we all know the disconnect with guest experience, and you're taking it to a different level. There's other companies that are doing some great things as well in our space that are bringing outside guest experiences and making them available. But what you're doing is you're making guest experience amenities available for ease of access through software, just the use of their phone and be able to go ahead and purchase as an add-on. Like, where do you see, like 5 years from now, like what do you see Mount doing that it's not doing today?
So it's a great question. I mean, the vision for Mount really comes back to Brian's original vision for Airbnb. And it was really to have all of these local experiences and authentic ways of communication when you travel. And so they're not able to do all of that anymore because now they're a public company, they're way too big, and they really need to make money. He just announced, I don't know if you guys saw, but they are putting a lot more effort back into Airbnb experiences. It's great because Mount really complements that. We're kind of the middleman between the property and the experience, in that we have the vehicles and the amenities, and then let's bring in someone to facilitate that authentic experience. And that's really what Mount wants to do moving forward. So fast forward 5 years from now, pretty much every traveler out there, you're going to just see them with a backpack. That's about it. The airlines are probably going to be disrupted and mad at us. But what it means is that if you come with just a backpack, you now get to figure out how to rent everything in destination, from the golf clubs you might want, from the, fancy ball gown you might need for a wedding, all that type of stuff. And you get to rent it from the locals. So now, instead of feeling like a traveler who's sticking out, you're wearing Americanized clothes in Europe and you just look like a fool, you actually get the chance to really become that local for a week, rent, learn from them, take them to dinner, get all of the experiences you possibly can. And that'll all be facilitated through Mount.
Love it. I love it. But I love the vision, but let's talk about, so as a family guy, father of 4, traveling, like I see this like adding up, getting exponentially more and more expensive the more and more things I have to, like, where I could just like, screw it, I'll pack like some really like some insane like suitcases to go ahead and take care of, because I'll bring it with me, and I'm okay with sticking out like a sore thumb because I'm just a dad looking like a dad. But how do we keep that affordable? Like I love the vision, but how do we keep that in, everyone can utilize it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's kind of what Airbnb does right now. You have the luxury end of your scope, where it's like a 10-bedroom house in Greece. It's a great villa, that type of stuff, 20 grand a night. But then you have like the 1 bedroom inside a 4-bed where it's a hostel and it's like $60 a night. So I think because people that list on Mount get to choose their pricing, they can list nicer stuff, they can list, more economical stuff. I think that'll take care of this economic gap, where it's like, if you don't want to spend a lot of money, you can even rent it for the hour. You don't even have to rent it your entire stay. If you do need something your entire stay, go ahead and do that. And I think that's where it comes into play. But what Mount wants to do, it would be hard to make this for every single traveler out there, because they all have different needs. For example, You're a family of 4. Your needs are a lot different than the Gen Z traveler who maybe yesterday decided to go to Greece. Then they get to Greece and in 5 days decide they want to extend their trip and they're just going to go backpack to Norway. That's kind of the difference. I think right now Mount is catered to the Gen Z traveler where it's more last minute, it's nomadic, you're traveling, you're forgetting things, you don't want to go with everything. You don't know, your life is chaotic. That's where we fit in right now. Down the line, we'll have to go.
And I get it too. Because the other thing is, like, look, John, you're not traveling Europe with big ass bags. And
hell no. And again, I'm talking
to fly somewhere. That's outrageously expensive as it is. Like, I agree.
I agree with you. I'm being devil's advocate for sure. I'm trying to dig in a little bit and be devil's.
But it's also going to change culture and behavior because behavior and culture are changing too. Dude, like I'm the guy that used to pack, overpack, and I still overpack. But now, dude, I got a 72-hour backpack bag, and I'm learning to use that thing. And I'm going to continue to use that thing. And it's going directly to the things that she's saying because when I'm on the ground, personally, I like supporting local economies where I can and where it's feasible. But the other part about it is the ease of travel, of knowing that you can have what you need when you get there and you don't have to bring it and you don't have to take it back.
I have a question for this because, and I'll be honest, I haven't used Mount, but I'm going to. As a traveler, and would I know ahead of time that this property has Mount and be able to see the things because that would obviously change some of my decision-making process. If it's something that I show up and then, oh shit, they got Mount. Awesome. What is this? That's a little bit different. But if it's promoted correctly at the beginning, if it's part of the package, the campaign that the property managers or the hosts are pushing out, my assumption is yes, early on, you're going to be able to understand, hey, these are all available. Check it out.
Yeah, no, exactly correct assumption. So the ideal use case is the host has done what they're supposed to, and basically they've updated their listing and they have in their photo carousel, it says powered by Mount. Here are the amenities available at this property. But if you're a traveler that has used Mount before, the way it's really designed to be used is you open up our app and it populates with a map. And so you can drag the map anywhere and basically zoom in on your property. And it'll populate little bubbles of all of the amenities that are in your area that you can rent because you don't just have to rent the amenities from your property. Say there's an Airbnb, 2 doors down, short-term rental, you can actually rent from them as well. So it's kind of connecting everything together.
Now, I love it. I love it. But are you working just with hosts? Or are you partnering with like property management companies that have say 50, 100, 200 like units? Like, are you working towards that direction as well to go ahead and get like an inventory grab as far as doors go?
Yeah, for right now, we kind of have to just because we need a lot of supply on the platform. So we have 2 programs. For the individual host, super simple because they typically already have this stuff. Either in the owner's closet or whatever. So they just take what they already have and list it on the site and kind of become their own Mount host. For property managers, the thing we realized is they have no time in their day for anything else. They're already overworked. Their margins are already super thin that they want to use Mount because it increases their margins because you don't technically, if you're the owner and manager of the amenities, you don't have to give that revenue to the owner. You're just using their land essentially. Like you have to get
permission. Right.
But what we've done is we stood them up a co-host program, which is funny because they're inherently a co-host. But what it does is it basically brings in a professional amenity fleet manager. So if you have 200 properties, say in Florida, and you want bikes, you can bring in that co-host who will come with the electric bikes, maybe 100 of them. They'll service all of your properties with the electric bikes. They'll make sure they're running. They'll do the maintenance. They'll go get them if they're lost. You as the property manager are very hands-off. You're just granting access to the guests and the property. And you're getting, anywhere from 30 to 40% of the rental revenue from the bikes.
So you've already built these relationships out. And so if like with bikes and everything you have access to, I'm assuming kayaks and all these type of things that, depending on the destination, you already have relationships so you can just kind of plug and play.
Exactly. Yeah. The Mount host model, the one where you're an individual owner, is live globally. The co-host model is only in the US right now, but hoping to get that global as well.
I love it. I love these cool products and these cool, this SaaS that comes in and does this stuff that you're like, damn, why didn't I think it? It's the same as, like the other day when we're talking about like the trash pickup when we had Cam Monkey. I'm like, holy shit, wish I'd thought about that. Like, man, it's so dumb. It makes so much sense. And it takes some outside the box thinking to go, we could just do this. And it's, it's just a little bit of a little bit. I know I'm not downplaying how hard it has been as an entrepreneur to build what you built. But really excited for you, really excited for your showcase in New York. What's the dates on the showcase in New York?
We are still finalizing dates. It'll be the week of October 10th, I want to say, because that's New York Tech Week. And it's also the week of CRE Tech, biggest prop tech conference.
Right. So it'll be right around when this comes out, that event. I'm excited to see all the photos and hear all the buzz around it. We're going to go ahead and see you at the Book Direct Show. You're part of this super awesome project that we are codenamed Storytime. Hey, first time anyone public has heard codenamed Storytime. That is going to go out. And super excited for you, Madi. I'm super excited for Mout, and obviously we'll see you at International as well. Any last thing you'd like to go ahead and share with our listeners today?
I don't think so. No, I mean, honestly, we covered pretty much my entire life. So that was perfect.
From birth all the way to, I mean, to be fair, it's like, it's a shorter life than Teo and I, who are twice as old as you.
Speak for yourself.
But congratulations.
We didn't get into the coastal foodie part. That's where I was going to dig in. But
we could coastal food. We'll save that for next time.
We got to save them things for next time. So,
congratulations, happy birthday. For those that are listening, if you haven't gone ahead and liked the No BS Short-Term Rental podcast on Apple or Spotify, please go ahead and do so. Leave a review. It helps us out tremendously. Thanks again, Madi.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys.
See you in Miami.
This podcast is a Hospitality.fm production.